Welcome back, everybody, to another deep dive. Today we're gonna be looking at Georgia,
Georgia?
Georgia,
Hmm.
and it's a really interesting time to be looking at Georgia because they just inaugurated a new president.
They did.
And so we've got some news reports here from his inauguration, and it is a fascinating story.
It is.
So I'm very excited to jump in and kind of unpack this with you because I know that you've done a lot of research on this.
I have. I have.
And I have too.
But
So let's
excellent.
get into it. So
Yeah.
Mikheil Kavelashvili, the new president,
Yes.
I mean, this is somebody who is a professional soccer player
He was indeed.
and now is president of a country. Like, that is a fascinating story in and of itself.
Yeah, it's quite a career trajectory, isn't it? Manchester City striker to president.
That's amazing.
I mean, you don't see that every day, do you?
Oh, you don't.
It's a fascinating story, and I think it really speaks to the kind of um
The unexpected.
the unexpected nature of Georgian politics. I mean, this is a country that has seen its fair share of upheaval and change over the years,
And intrigue and.
absolutely. And this new president Kavelashvili is certainly adding to that sense of intrigue. I mean, he's a very interesting character. He's known for his very conservative views,
I was going to say he's.
his criticism of the West.
Yes, he is. He's quite skeptical.
He is quite skeptical, and his recent election victory has really kind of thrown a spanner in the works in terms of Georgia's relationship with the West.
Well, and his inauguration was boycotted
It
by
was.
several opposition parties.
Several opposition parties refused to attend. They denounced the parliamentary elections, which preceded his inauguration, as rigged, and accused the governing Georgian Dream Party of manipulating the results.
Yeah, so you've got this background of accusations of fraud,
You do.
of kind of a
Questionable.
questionable election. And then you have this president who is coming in who is very skeptical of the West
Yep,
and seems to be pushing this kind of populist movement.
Well, this is it. I mean, he's very much aligned with what's known as the People's Power movement in Georgia, which has been gaining traction.
Yeah, I've been hearing about this People's Power movement.
Yeah, it's a very interesting development, and it's very much in line with what we're seeing in other parts of the world. This rise of populism, this skepticism of traditional institutions and the West in particular.
Oh yeah, and it's tapping into
Public anger.
public anger, frustration. I
Yeah.
mean, it's like
Yeah, a sense of being left behind, a sense that the elites are out of touch with the concerns of ordinary people, and this is something that Kavelashvili has really tapped into. I mean, he's come to power on a wave of populist sentiment, and it'll be very interesting to see how he governs and how he tries to meet the expectations of those who have supported him.
so, obviously he's just coming into office, so it's
Sure.
very early days.
Very early days.
But it's a fascinating story, and I think one of the things that I'm really curious to kind of unpack with you is the role of this kind of shadow figure, Bedzina Ivanishvili.
Ah, yes, the
Yeah.
oligarch,
Yeah.
the power behind the throne, as he's often referred to.
Yeah, and the U.S. has just recently sanctioned him,
They have indeed.
which seems like a pretty significant move.
It is a significant move, and I think it really speaks to the level of concern that the U.S. has about the direction that Georgia is heading in.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about Ivanishvili.
Okay.
Like, who is this guy?
Yeah.
How did he become so powerful?
Yeah.
And what's his role in all of this?
Well, he's a fascinating character. He's a billionaire. He amassed his fortune in Russia during the 1990s.
Wow.
And then he returned to Georgia and entered politics, founded the Georgian Dream Party, which is the party that is currently in power.
So this is the party that Kavelashvili is a part of.
Exactly. And Ivanishvili is widely seen as the real power behind the Georgian Dream Party, even though he's officially retired from politics.
Even though he's officially retired from politics.
Back in 2021, he stepped down,
Yeah.
but he's still seen as the puppet master pulling the strings,
Yeah, like the
the eminence grise.
eminence grise.
Yes, lurking in the shadows.
Yeah, and now the U.S. is saying no more.
That's right. They've imposed sanctions on him, citing his involvement in corruption and his attempts to undermine democratic processes in Georgia.
So this is a pretty big deal.
This is a very big deal, and it's a sign that the West is not happy with the way things are going in Georgia.
Right, and it's interesting because, Georgia has historically leaned towards the West.
It has.
They've wanted to join NATO, they've wanted to join the European Union,
Exactly. They've been aspiring to become part of the Euro-Atlantic community.
and now they're kind of like,
Now they're flirting with with Russia and China.
Yeah, they're kind of hedging their bets a little bit.
They are, and it's a very risky strategy.
Well, yeah, because Russia is not exactly known for being a reliable partner.
No, they are not. And especially given the current situation with the war in Ukraine,
Right.
I mean, it's a very delicate balancing act that Georgia is trying to pull off.
And I think this people's power movement is really kind of fueling this shift.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, they're the ones who are really pushing this narrative of Georgia needing to be more assertive, more independent, and less reliant on the West.
Yeah. And they're very critical of the U.S.
They are very critical of the U.S. They see the U.S. as interfering in Georgia's affairs, as
Sure.
trying to impose its values on Georgia, and they're very much against that.
And it's interesting because,
It's a very anti-Western sentiment.
it is. It's very anti-Western, but it's also tapping into this kind of global trend of populism
It is.
that we're seeing.
Absolutely. I mean, this is not just a Georgian phenomenon. This is something that we're seeing all over the world. This rise of populist movements, this rejection of globalism, and a kind of retreat into nationalism.
Yeah. And it's really shaking things up.
It's shaking things up, and it's making the world a much more unpredictable place.
So I think it's really important for us to kind of understand what's happening in Georgia because it's a microcosm of what's happening in a lot of other places.
It is a microcosm. It's a very interesting case study.
And it has implications for the wider region
Absolutely.
and for the global balance of power.
Absolutely. This is not just about Georgia. This is about the future of international relations.
And I think, for those of you who are listening who are interested in global affairs, this is a story that you really need to pay attention to.
I agree. I think it's a fascinating story, and it's one that's going to continue to unfold in the months and years to come.
And, if you're enjoying this deep dive into Georgian politics, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more insightful content just like this.
And don't forget to leave a comment below and tell us what you think about this fascinating story.
Yeah, we want to hear from you.
Yeah.
Tell us what you think about Georgia's political shift and what it means for the future of the region and the world.
What do you think is going to happen next?
Yeah, what are your predictions? Let us know in the comments below.
We love hearing from our viewers and getting your perspectives on these really complex global issues.
Absolutely. So let's keep the conversation going.
Yeah.
All right, so now that we've kind of set the stage a little bit,
Yes.
I want to dive deeper into some of these key issues
Let's do it.
and really try to understand what's driving this political turmoil in Georgia.
Okay, I'm ready.
So let's start with Bidzina Ivanishvili.
All right, let's unpack the oligarch.
Okay, so he made his fortune in Russia in the 1990s.
That's right. During that period of rapid privatization and kind of Wild West capitalism in Russia, he was able to amass a huge fortune. And he used that fortune to really kind of shape Georgian politics to his liking.
So he comes back to Georgia. He founds this political party.
The Georgian Dream Party.
Georgian Dream.
And they come to power in 2012.
2012, okay.
And they've been in power ever since. And Ivanishvili has really kind of been the guiding force behind this party, even though, as we said, he's officially retired from politics.
So how does he exert his influence? I mean, if he's not officially in government.
Well, he's got a lot of levers of power at his disposal. He's got his wealth, obviously, which he uses to fund the party, to support candidates, to influence media outlets.
So he's controlling the narrative.
He's controlling the narrative to a large extent, and he's also got a lot of connections within the government, within the bureaucracy, so he's able to kind of pull strings behind the scenes and make sure that things go his way.
And the U.S. is saying this is not okay.
The U.S. is saying this is not okay. They're very concerned about the level of influence that he has, and they believe that he's using that influence to undermine democratic processes in Georgia.
So why are they so concerned?
Yeah.
What specifically are they worried about?
Well, they're worried about a number of things. They're worried about the erosion of democratic norms in Georgia. They're worried about the growing influence of Russia in Georgia, and they see Ivanishvili as being a key player in both of those trends.
So what can they do about it? I mean, they've imposed sanctions.
They've imposed sanctions.
Is that enough?
Well, it's a start. It's a way of putting pressure on him and on the Georgian government to change course.
But is it going to be effective?
It's hard to say. It remains to be seen.
Yeah, because, I mean, he's a billionaire.
He is a billionaire.
Like, how much do sanctions really affect him?
Well, they do have an impact. I mean, they restrict his ability to travel to do business internationally.
They freeze assets.
They freeze assets, so it's not nothing.
It's not nothing, but it's also not a silver bullet.
Yeah.
I mean, he's still got a lot of power within Georgia, and he's still able to exert that power.
So it's a complex situation.
It's a very complex situation, and it's one that I think we need to watch very closely.
Yeah, this is a developing story.
And we're going to be following it closely here at the Deep Dive.
Absolutely.
So make sure you stay tuned for more updates on this fascinating and really important story.
Yeah, Georgia is at a crossroads, and it's going to be very interesting to see which path they choose.
And what it means for the rest of us.
Exactly.
All right, so we've talked about Ivanishvili.
Yes.
We've talked about the Georgian Dream Party.
Yep.
Let's talk about this People's Power movement.
Okay.
Because this seems to be the group that is really kind of pushing this shift away from the West.
They're the ones who are really kind of driving the populist wave in Georgia.
So what do they stand for? What are their core beliefs?
Well, they stand for a more nationalist vision of Georgia. They believe that Georgia should be more assertive on the world stage, that it should be less reliant on the West, and that it should prioritize its own interests above all else.
So they're kind of like Georgia first.
Georgia first, exactly.
Okay, and how much support do they have?
Well, they have a significant amount of support. They were instrumental in getting Kavelashvili elected, and they seem to be growing in popularity.
So they're tapping into somebody.
They're tapping into something.
They're tapping into this kind of public anger.
Public anger, frustration with the status quo, with the perceived failures of the previous government, and with the West as well.
So they're kind of like blaming the West for Georgia's problems.
To a certain extent, yes. They see the West as meddling in Georgia's affairs, as trying to impose its values on Georgia, and they're very much against that.
And it's interesting because Georgia has had this long and complicated relationship with Russia.
They have indeed.
And now they're kind of like cozying up to them again.
It's a very strange turn of events.
Yeah.
It's like they've forgotten about the 2008 war.
Right.
When Russia invaded Georgia.
And took a big chunk of their territory.
Exactly. It's a very risky gamble.
It's a very risky gamble.
And it's one that I don't think is going to end well for Georgia.
So what are the potential consequences of this shift away from the West?
Well, there are a number of potential consequences. One is that Georgia could become more isolated from the West.
Okay.
The West could impose more sanctions.
Right.
They could reduce their economic and military support for Georgia.
Right.
And that could really hurt Georgia.
Yeah, especially economically.
Especially economics.
And then there's also the risk that Georgia could become more dependent on Russia.
Exactly. And that's a very dangerous situation to be in.
Yeah, because Russia's not known for being a reliable partner.
No, they're not.
And they tend to use their influence to kind of control countries.
To exert their will.
To exert their will, yes.
And Georgia could easily become a pawn in Russia's geopolitical games.
Yeah. So this is a very risky strategy that Georgia's pursuing.
It is a very risky strategy.
And it's one that I think we need to pay very close attention to.
Absolutely.
So I think it's really important for us to kind of step back and try to understand the bigger picture here. What's happening in Georgia is not just about Georgia.
No, it's not.
It's part of a larger global trend.
It is.
Of countries kind of reassessing their alliances.
Absolutely. We're seeing this in other parts of the world as well.
Yeah, we're seeing it in
Latin America.
Latin America.
In Africa.
In Africa.
In Southeast Asia.
Yeah, countries are kind of like...
They're looking around and they're saying, okay, who are our friends? Who are our enemies?
Yeah, who's going to give us the best deal?
Exactly. And the old alliances are breaking down.
Yeah.
The old certainties are gone.
And we're entering a new era.
A new era of great power competition.
Yeah. And it's a very dangerous time.
It is a very dangerous time.
Because the rules of the game are changing.
They are, and we don't know what the new rules are going to be.
Yeah, so I think it's really important for us to kind of stay informed.
Absolutely.
And to try to make sense of what's happening.
And to have these conversations.
To have these conversations.
To really try to understand what's going on in the world.
Yeah, and that's what we're trying to do here at the Deep Dives.
Exactly.
We're trying to bring you the stories that matter.
The stories that are shaping the world.
The stories that are shaping the world, and we're trying to do it in a way that's informative and engaging.
And hopefully thought-provoking.
And hopefully thought-provoking.
Yeah, we want to get people thinking about these issues.
Absolutely.
Because these are the issues that are going to define our future.
They are.
And we all need to be informed and engaged if we want to shape that future in a positive way.
So thank you for joining us on this deep dive into Georgian politics.
It's been a pleasure.
And we'll see you next time for another fascinating exploration of global affairs.
Until then, stay curious.
Stay curious.
And, this whole situation with Georgia, it's especially interesting when you consider what's happening in Ukraine.
Right, with the war and everything.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, with Russia, showing that they're not afraid to use military force to get what they want, it makes you wonder, what are they thinking in Georgia right now?
Well, that's what I'm thinking. I mean, is this, like, are they trying to play both sides, like...
It's hard to tell.
Yeah.
I mean, they've got this history with Russia, right?
Yeah, not a great one.
No, not at all. I mean, they went to war in 2008.
Right, and Russia basically took a chunk of their territory.
Exactly, yeah. South Ossetia and Abkhazia.
Yeah.
And so, for Georgia to now be like, oh, maybe we should get closer to Russia, it seems kind of crazy.
Well, it seems short-sighted, I think.
Yeah.
Like, have they not learned from history?
Well, that's the question, isn't it? I mean, are they just trying to,
Hedge their bets.
Hedge their bets. Yeah, play it safe.
Play both sides.
Yeah.
Or is this a genuine shift?
Yeah.
Are they really turning away from the West?
It's hard to say. I mean, I think it's probably a bit of both.
Yeah.
I think they're definitely trying to kind of play the field a little bit, see what they can get from both sides.
Yeah. See who gives them a better deal.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I also think there's a genuine sense of disillusionment with the West.
In Georgia.
Yeah. I mean, they feel like they've been kind of left out in the cold.
Yeah.
They've been trying to join NATO. They've been trying to join the EU.
Right.
And the West has been kind of dragging its feet.
Stringing them along.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so they're starting to think, well, maybe Russia is a better bet.
Well, and let's not forget China.
Oh, yeah, China's in the mix, too.
Yeah.
They're throwing around a lot of money.
Yeah, with the Belt and Road Initiative and everything.
Exactly. Yeah. They're investing heavily in infrastructure projects all over the world.
Yeah.
And Georgia's kind of like right in the middle of that.
Prime real estate.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So they're seeing an opportunity there.
To kind of play those two off each other.
Yeah, to play Russia and China off each other.
Yeah.
And see who can give them a better deal.
Yeah. So it's a very interesting situation. It's a very complex situation.
Yeah.
And it's one that has a lot of implications.
Oh, absolutely.
For the region.
Yeah.
For the world.
For the global balance of power.
Yeah. This is like a key piece of the puzzle.
It is a key piece of the puzzle, and it's one that we need to be paying attention to.
Yeah. I mean, if Georgia really does shift away from the West, it could have a ripple effect.
It could have a domino effect.
Yeah.
Other countries might start to follow suit.
Yeah.
And that could really change the geopolitical landscape.
Yeah. And, we're already seeing this trend of, the global order kind of shifting.
Yeah, the unipolar world is over.
Yeah.
The U.S. is no longer the sole superpower.
Right.
And so you're seeing this rise of these other powers like Russia and China.
Yeah.
And they're challenging the U.S.
They're vying for influence.
Yeah.
And countries like Georgia are caught in the middle.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They're the ones who are really feeling the pressure.
So what do you think is going to happen?
I don't know. It's hard to say.
It's really unpredictable.
It's very unpredictable.
I mean, I think a lot depends on what Kavelashvili does.
Yeah.
What direction he decides to take Georgia in.
If he really leans into this people's power movement and this anti-Western sentiment, then I think we could see some really big changes.
I think we could too.
Yeah. But if he tries to kind of play it more cautiously, try to balance things out a little bit.
Yeah, hedge his bets.
Yeah. Then maybe we'll see a more kind of gradual shift.
Yeah, more incremental change.
Yeah.
It's really hard to say at this point.
Well, and I think, one of the things that's really interesting about this whole situation is the role of the people.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, this people's power movement is not just some top-down thing.
No, it's a grassroots movement.
It's a grassroots movement. Yeah.
It's people who are frustrated with the way things are.
And they're demanding change.
And they're willing to take risks.
They are willing to take risks, and they're not afraid to challenge the status quo.
And so I think it's really important for us to understand what's driving this movement.
Absolutely.
What are their hopes? What are their fears? What are their aspirations?
And what do they see as the alternatives?
Yeah.
I mean, they're obviously not happy with the way things are.
Right.
But what do they want instead?
And do they even know?
That's a good question. I mean, I think a lot of them are still figuring that out.
Yeah.
But I think what's clear is that they're not going to be satisfied with the status quo.
No.
They want change.
They want change, and they're willing to fight for it.
So this is a story that we need to be following very closely.
Absolutely.
because it has implications for all of us.
It does. It really does.
And so I want to encourage all of you who are listening
Yeah.
to stay informed.
To do your own research.
Yeah, to read up on this.
Yeah.
To talk to people.
To engage with the issues. Yeah. Because this is something that we all need to be thinking about.
Absolutely.
And talking about.
And debating.
Yeah. Because the decisions that are made in Georgia are going to have consequences for the rest of the world.
They are. They will.
So let's keep this conversation going.
Let's do it. So, they present themselves as the voice of the people, the ones who are really looking out for the interests of ordinary Georgians.
Right.
But you have to wonder, how much of that is genuine?
Right.
And how much of it is just rhetoric?
Yeah. Are they really
Yeah.
looking out for the people?
Yeah. Are they really?
Or are they just looking out for themselves?
Yeah. Or are they just using this populist rhetoric
Right.
to gain power?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a question that we have to ask about all populist movements,
Because they're very good at tapping into
public anger
and frustration and channeling that into political support.
into political power.
Yeah.
But then once they're in power,
Right. What do they do with it?
exactly.
Yeah.
Do they actually deliver on their promises?
Right.
Or do they just become
Part of the problem.
part of the problem, part of the elite?
Right. And then you get a new populist movement.
Exactly. It's a cycle.
It's a cycle. Yeah.
And it's one that we're seeing play out
all over the world.
all over the world right now.
Yeah. It's a
It's
very,
a very worrying trend.
it is a worrying trend. I mean, I think
Yeah.
populism can be a very powerful force for good.
It can.
It can hold the elites accountable.
Right.
It can give a voice to the voiceless,
Right.
but it can also be very easily manipulated and used for nefarious purposes.
And it can lead to
Yeah.
some very bad outcomes.
It can lead to authoritarianism,
Yeah.
to nationalism,
The conflict.
the conflict. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's something that we need to be very careful about.
We do.
We need to be aware of the dangers.
As well as the potential benefits.
And I think,
Yeah.
it's incumbent upon all of us
Yeah.
to be informed,
To be engaged.
to be critical thinkers,
To think critically.
to not just accept what we're being told.
To question everything.
Yeah, to question everything.
To do our own research.
To really try to understand
Yeah.
what's going on.
What's really going on.
Yeah.
Because the world is a very complex place.
It is.
And it's getting more complex all the time.
And I think, that's one of the things that we try to do here at the Deep Dive
Yeah.
is to
help people make sense of it all.
help people make sense of it all.
Yeah.
To provide some context.
To provide some analysis.
To kind of connect the dots.
To connect the dots, yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's easy to get lost
It is.
in the day-to-day news cycle.
Right.
And to lose sight of the bigger picture.
Yeah. And so we're trying to kind of step back
Yeah.
and look at the broader trends.
The underlying forces
Yeah, the underlying forces
that are shaping the world.
that are shaping the world and help people understand
Yeah.
what's at stake,
What it all means.
what it all means.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we hope you've enjoyed this deep dive into Georgian politics.
Yeah, it's been a fascinating conversation.
It has been.
And, we've only just scratched the surface.
We've just dipped our toes into the water.
Yeah, there's so much more to explore here.
There is.
And I think, this is a story that we're going to be following
Yeah,
for a long time to come.
absolutely.
So we encourage you to stay tuned
Stay tuned.
and to keep the conversation going.
Yeah, let us know what you think.
Yeah, leave a comment below.
Yeah, tell us what you think about Georgia's political shift.
Yeah, what are your predictions?
So what do you think is going to happen next?
Yeah, and how do you think this is going to impact
Yeah,
the rest of the world?
the region, the world, the global balance of power.
Yeah. We want to hear from you. So thanks for joining us,
Thanks for listening.
and we'll see you next time
See you next time.
for another Deep Dives.
Into the world of global affairs. Bye, everybody. Bye.